Bernie has questions about basing his script on real events that occurred in 1872. The story concerns a ship that was plagued by problems and focuses on her last voyage and its last captain and his family, none of whom were ever found. Bernie's script tries to explain and dispel the many theories about what happened and arrives at a bizarre and fresh hypothesis. He wants to know if he needs to seek permission from any heirs. He also asks whether this is a script worth pitching to the horror producer segment of Hollywood. Well, Bernie, let's consider the possible legal claims that could arise out of this story. First off, we have to consider defamation, particularly libel, the written or recorded form. This is the publication of false information about a person that causes damage to his or her reputation. Now, if the story Bernie tells causes damage to the captain or his family's reputation, it's conceivable that some heir could sue for defamation. But I think it's fairly unlikely that here, 140 years later, there's any real damage that those heirs could claim. Next, we look at the right of privacy. The right of privacy is a fairly modern invention, and even if the subjects of the story did have a right of privacy at the time they died, there's again little damage the heirs today could prove they've suffered. The right of publicity is another consideration. This is a property right that gives a person the right to control and limit commercial uses of his or her name, likeness, and persona. The telling of a dramatic story, though, is generally a protected kind under the First Amendment, and it's deemed a non-commercial use. So, at least here in the U.S., it's unlikely that the heirs of this captain's family, if there even are any heirs, could prevail in claims against the writers or producers of a film based on the story of their demise. But you might opt anyway to make a contract with those heirs. You see, doing so gets you something very valuable, their cooperation. You may find it very useful to have access to these folks' personal papers, family history, photographs, and the like. Another aspect is that you can secure their promise not to cooperate with anyone else who might try to tell their family story, and of course their promise not to sue you. So think hard before you decide you don't want to deal with underlying rights. Even if you don't legally have to, it might still be a smart thing to do. Should you pitch it to the Hollywood horror community? Well, absolutely. If there's a possibility of anybody who is going to want to buy the material, I think you owe it to yourself and to them to approach them about it. The hard part is making sure that it's a saleable property, it's up to the standards that you need, and finding and getting in touch with the right kinds of buyers.